Great. Hello, everyone. I see a couple of attendees coming in. Wonderful, wonderful. Great. All right. So we're gonna get started. First of all, happy Love Liberal Arts Week and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. We are concluding our week of love-themed programs for the liberal arts with this wonderful panel this afternoon of love others, careers, and helping professions. So we have a pretty amazing set of panelists here today. My name is Lauren. I'm the assistant director for the Career Enrichment Network. I'm going to be moderating. So as you all go through this panel, like for those who are online, please feel free to put any questions that you have for our panel of experts in the chat or in the Q&A. I will monitor those questions as well. Okay. All right. So let's see. So let's get started with Teresa Wolf. So Teresa is the outreach coordinator for the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps of AmeriCorps. Teresa currently serves on staff as outreach coordinator with Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps of AmeriCorps, engaging host sites and AmeriCorps members to address critical needs in health and wellness, education, environmental stewardship across the southwestern and south central Pennsylvania region. Prior to this role in human services, Teresa taught middle school ELA in Akola, Florida. I'm probably saying that incorrectly. Led after school youth and children's outreach program in Johnstown, PA, and then served as an AmeriCorps member in her local school district in Johnstown, PA as well, providing literacy interventions for children and youth and increasing family engagement. Teresa loves to bake and cook, study Italian language, and do long distance walking. She is passionate about her community and the possibilities for increased thriving through adversity, especially cross-generationally. She's thankful for the opportunity to be part of this panel today. So welcome, Teresa.
So much.
All right, next we have Brian. Brian Rinker is the program manager for the Center Helps 988 crisis hotline, overseeing operations, training, and volunteer staff. He holds a master's in public health from UC Berkeley and is studying clinical mental health counseling at Pennsylvania Western University. A former public health journalist in San Francisco, he began as a Center Helps volunteer and now provides counselors with clinical tools and professional support to effectively assist callers in crisis. So welcome, Brian. Thank you for being here. And last but not least is Katie Yobst. Katie is the recruiter of the Eastern region for City Year. So Katie has a diverse background in higher education, spanning selective college admissions, donor relations, and campus recruitment. With experience in school-based service through the AmeriCorps program City Year, they have worked at the intersection of education access, student success, and community impact. Their expertise in guiding students through competitive admissions, fostering donor engagement, and recruiting future leaders makes them a valuable voice in discussion on education, service, and career pathways. So it's wonderful to have you here, Katie. Okay. Well, with that, we have, again, our panel of experts. So again, I'm going to encourage all of you in the audience to ask questions. I'll be monitoring the Q&A in the chat. But first, I'm going to kick it off by asking each one of our panelists to tell us a bit about the work your organization does and why students might be interested in volunteering, interning, or working with your org. So Teresa, why don't we get started with you?
Super. So Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps addresses critical needs in the southwestern and south central PA region, and those specific needs are in environmental stewardship. So that looks like trail maintenance and cleaning up the local rivers and providing environmental education. And it also looks like health and wellness outreach. So we partner with small nonprofits that are doing any kind of health and wellness outreach. That could be mental health, food insecurity, drugs and alcohol outreach, all of those kinds of things. And then finally, we partner with local school districts who are where our members provide reading and literacy and math interventions for struggling students to help them stay on track to graduate. People who are soon to graduate from Penn State who should consider serving with Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps, because it's a great opportunity to address critical needs in your specific locale, and also you are investing in yourself. So members not only serve their communities and help improve communities, making a difference in the lives of young and old people across the region, but also while you're serving, you receive a living allowance. And at the conclusion of your service, you receive an education award that you can use to repay some of your federal student loans or towards furthering your education. And while you're serving, if you serve full-time, you can also receive free healthcare, which is actually very good healthcare, and free childcare, interest loan accrual repayment. It's a pretty great gig. And the folks who have chosen to do it, almost 3,000 people over the last 30 years. This is our 30th year of service. Those folks have really enjoyed themselves, learned a lot, been challenged, and it's a great opportunity to grow and learn. Thanks so much, Lauren.
Oh my gosh, amazing. You all do such amazing work, Teresa. Thank you. Brian, how about you next?
Great. Yeah, I'm Brian. Thanks, Lauren, a lot for moderating and inviting me, and welcome everyone who's here. And yeah, Teresa's program sounds really cool. I wish I was young enough to do it, but yeah. So I run I'm the program manager at Center Helps, and what we do, we're a community-based nonprofit. We run a 24/7 hotline, crisis hotline. So we provide emotional support and crisis counseling and suicide intervention, de-escalation, and kind of prevention to Center County. We're also the 988 call center for Center County, Northampton County, and 988 is the national suicide lifeline number, and we are just one of the call centers in Pennsylvania for that. Uh, like our crisis counselors are all volunteers. We're a really good like jumping off point for people who want to have a career in a helping profession, in mental health, healthcare, or just want to be more equipped with communication skills in any kind of job, really. And all our volunteers, like I want to say like 99% of them come from Penn State. They're undergrads. We have about 60 to 70 at any given time. Everyone goes through this training course that's about 7 weeks long in the evenings, and they are taught the skills and things and the know-how and our procedures and whatnot to be able to work on the hotline. And then people stick around for about a year or two, fulfilling the commitment we ask people to fulfill if they're gonna come in. And we write letters of recommendation for people. We help people get into grad schools if they want. Like we've had some people go to PhD programs in psychology, a lot of like mental health counseling. People go to med school. We have people who are going to law school. It can be pretty diverse. We also have like engineers, like biologists, things like that too, who kind of show up here. And we also provide direct mental health experience, which is hard to get when you're young and or just starting out in your career, especially in school. And we like throw you in it. We train you, teach you, support you, and you get to answer the phones from people who are calling from needing help with just kind of figuring out how to pay bills and things. They need help with electricity, food, things like that, to people who are just really in a state of emotional upheaval and turmoil and just really need someone to talk to people who are actively sometimes, engaged in a suicide attempt, and you get to be there for them and try and help them as best you can. So it can also get pretty intense as well, but it's a really important service. It's all for free. Anyone can call anytime. Um, yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, I think it's a really amazing opportunity if you want to get into kind of mental health or counseling. It gives you those foundational counseling kind of skills around listening and providing that stuff. And happy to talk more about it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brian. I know that I'm constantly referring students over to you. So,
Big supporter. Thank you.
all right. Katie, last but not least, of course.
Thanks, Lauren. So just a little disclaimer, I have a puppy with me. So if I seem a little distracted, he's very needy right now. But like Lauren said, my name is Katie Yobst, and I currently work as an on-campus recruiter for the AmeriCorps program City Year. And this was actually my first job when I graduated college. And it's really like a full circle moment for me to be able to kind of promote our opportunities to recent college graduates or seniors thinking about their next step for after graduation. And more specifically about what City Year does is we offer a 1-year position where folks work as student success coaches. And essentially what this means is they tutor and mentor in an under-resourced school district. And I always try and emphasize the fact that this is a very adaptable experience. Sometimes people hear me say school-based service and they think this is for folks that want to be teachers and educators, but I really think it's a melting pot. So it's a wonderful jumping off place if you are thinking about a career in education, of course, but also counseling, working with kids, nonprofits, public policy. And it's also an excellent opportunity if you're looking for a gap year. Perhaps you see yourself continuing your education for grad school, law school, or med school, similar to, what my co-panelists have articulated. But it's a great way to get out there and network, meet other professionals in the field, and just kind of expand your repertoire and open your eyes to opportunities. And, as I explained, this was my first job, and I think it really launched me personally and professionally. It led to a domino effect of me being able to work in higher ed, like Lauren said, and selective college admissions and nonprofits. So, I'm happy to share more, and I'm eager for where the conversation goes today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie. I know, again, not just to Brian, but I'm constantly referring students to both City Year and PMSC AmeriCorps as well. All three of you have wonderful opportunities depending on student career goals. And so I'm so thankful you're all here to talk a little bit more about that today. No questions in the chat yet. So just as a reminder to everybody in the audience, please feel free to submit questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm here monitoring. The next question that I have on my list are, so students who are very interested in working in nonprofits and helping professions, what is your advice for them on making this a career, or even like overcoming any challenges getting into this, like the helping professions field as a career? So Teresa, why don't we start with you again?
Super. So I would suggest a program like one of the ones like Katie or I are part of the administration for. So those kind of programs definitely offer opportunities for people who are just starting out in a field to gain the experience. And so the positions are designed in a lot of ways to be entry-level type of positions where a person who's inexperienced but eager to learn and really cares about the field can break into that field and learn and grow and gain the networking connections and the important relationships in your host site, but also beyond your host site with all the community events that you're a part of, to be able to figure out, okay, where can I go from here? In fact, like a program like ours could partner with a program like Brian's, and an AmeriCorps member could even serve at an organization like the one that Brian represents. So it's like a kind of a great opportunity to partner. And there are tons of other programs. It's not just AmeriCorps programs that have this opportunity. There are tons of these kinds of programs where it's a short amount of time, a half a year, a full year, a summer, that launches you into the steps you need to take to get into a career like this. So I would highly suggest considering, not just because I represent one, but just because I can see the pattern of how it helps people to develop those relationships they really need in a field.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Teresa. Katie, how about you?
I think Teresa hit the nail on the head, honestly. I think, putting myself in the position of folks that are attending this webinar, college students thinking about next steps, I would just, offer the perspective that I realize it can be daunting to kind of think about, where am I going to be in the next year or a couple years? But I think don't diminish what you can bring to the table. And I think, just take it step by step. So like Teresa was saying, I think, entry level positions sometimes might not be 100% what you want, but I would really encourage you to think, there is a facet of this position that really aligns to where I see myself going long term, and really lean into that and grow your experience and passion there, because it will very much so evolve as you kind of grow and add to your resume and expand your professional skill set. So, I think it's really easy to kind of sell yourself short or maybe be discouraged as you kind of get right out the door. But I would really, charge you with thinking, what's one piece of this puzzle, or, one part of my day-to-day that I really love, and lean into that and really think about how can I flourish and, bring this as I continue to grow within my career. So I that's what came to mind for me when I was thinking about this question.
I love that. Thank you so much, Katie. Brian, do you have anything to add?
Hmm. Um, not so much. I mean, I think both of them did a really good job of kind of setting up the ways to kind of figure out and get into this space and try and see where you fit and where you belong. And both of those sound like really good opportunities to do that. I guess my only like addition is just maybe, you know, kind of planning and thinking about it, and maybe some career counseling through the school to kind of help see like what direction you want to head, like what's your goals, and how much money you want to make, kind of things like that, and kind of plan accordingly, because there's a lot of different paths you can take here.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things that I work on with students in career coaching and career counseling appointments who want to go into the helping professions is I always ask them the question, who do you want to help and how do you want to help them? So like thinking about different types of populations or age ranges that you might want to serve and in what capacity, is it in a one-on-one setting? Is it in like more of a group setting or a community setting or a school setting? So thinking, or a policy setting. So thinking about that. So thank you, Brian, for kind of plugging us in. Um, you can make an appointment with myself or any of the other career coaches in our
That's the
office
first thing I
through
would do.
through Nittany Lion Careers. But I'll start you with the next question, Brian, because we had one come in the chat. So Barbara says, I'm not sure if this is a misconception, but I've heard that helping others and making good money don't typically go together. How do you find a career that is both fulfilling and allows you to be financially stable and have the money to do the things that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one, but I mean I think that's the balance, right? Of any kind of job, really, right? But sometimes the helping professions are sometimes undervalued monetarily in our society, and we do it anyways. And like I can share my experience, like let me think here how to say this. I think like planning is good. I think there's just some very simple, basic kind of financial planning that everyone should kind of know about how to kind of start to invest in their retirement accounts really early, and try and getting those kind of um, get some lessons in that if you don't have it, so how to kind of jump out the gate and start planning for the future, especially if you're young, because you can begin to save and build money pretty quickly. And by the time you're in your 40s, you can have chunk of change ready to go. So I think that's really helpful. I think about just thinking about the different ways in which you can go in a profession, and what are the ways that are going to kind of meet your financial goals, that kind of balance the kind of help you want to do. Like for me, I'm doing this job now as a program manager. And program managers, might pay different than being a social worker or things like that. And so there's different ways that you can develop your career through the different types of organizations you go in, right? And so that's helpful. So like county or government jobs might provide a different type of way to increase your income, as opposed to maybe a single nonprofit. There might be less growth there, or who knows. But I'm just kind of being strategic around that. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. You, and I think what a lot of people do is they have their hands in a lot of different buckets too. Like I talk to people who are therapists, and they do things like I do. They run a program, and then they see clients in the night, or they consult with a hospital. It's kind of like you start to um, help in all different areas, and you kind of piece together more and more kind of financial stability through that.
Thank you so much. Katie, do you have anything to add with that?
I guess I would just add, of course, you want to be financially secure, while also feeling really satisfied in your position and, happy with your day-to-day work-life balance. I would maybe say it could be a helpful exercise just to do like a personal inventory. Like, of course, we would all want all of those things, but just thinking about what's most important to you right now and using that to guide yourself as you're making decisions about positions that you're looking into or accepting. So, at least you have that clarity that you're being really intentional about what you're seeking out. And the other thing that I would add to, you can always pivot. So I don't think that's a bad thing. Perhaps you see yourself in a position that's very, service oriented, and you do that for a few years and it fills your cup, but then you realize life is taking you in another direction. You can kind of just roll with that. So I think that kind of frees you when you realize you're in the driver's seat and you can, make changes as you see fit if your life priorities change.
Teresa?
I really think that they both really summarize it well. I definitely second the idea of doing some personal reflection and deciding, okay, what really does matter to me? And sometimes it means that what I'm passionate about means I need to sacrifice in some other ways, and just deciding what is the most important thing to you. But you can't know that until you take some time to really reflect on it and do it, and use some of these amazing resources that Lauren is sharing in the chat. I'm like saving all these links. Yeah, they're so worth it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really great question too, and I appreciate all three of your answers. The link that I shared in the chat specifically related to finances is the Financial and Life Skills Center here at Penn State. They provide free financial counseling for students, staff, and alumni. So when you graduate, like, you can still work with them in a one-on-one capacity and get some financial coaching, which is really nice. And also, like, not just to plug in career coaching or counseling at all, but with whatever everyone was saying, like, tuning into yourself and what you are thinking about when it comes to what financial wellness, what does that look like specifically for you? It might be looking different for you versus your peers, and the cost of living in different areas that you might be considering. So I'll put one more link in the chat because salary transparency and negotiation is like my favorite thing. So my next move is another really great resource to just see, to give you an idea of pay within different career fields too. So, but excellent. So no questions in the chat. Again, keep them coming. I love it. That was a really great question, Barbara. Thank you so much for asking it. So moving back to the questions that I have for you all. So I'm wondering what liberal arts skills, so if we're thinking about like problem solving, critical thinking, communication, those different types of things, are valuable to you all in your career paths, and what top skills you have used within your role in the organization that you work for. So why don't we start with Teresa?
I would say that effective communication is the top skill that I use in my profession. And that looks as simple as writing emails that don't have errors in them, because I do a lot of proofreading each and every day, even though I would rather just hit send. And that also looks like effectively communicating with colleagues who have a different perspective on things than I do, and communicating with a huge, diverse core of people, of 100 people who are coming from all different backgrounds, all different ages, all different levels of experience in careers and walks of life, all different people. And so being able to effectively communicate and try to understand their perspective and where I'm coming from, what some of my biases are and what some of theirs are, and effectively communicating with each other. That means face to face, that means via text and email and all those things. Communication and clearly and effectively communicating my ideas and trying to understand those of others, I would say is my number one skill that I use all day, every single day. And secondly, I would say a skill that I use all the time is being I don't even know how to say it, but a lifelong learner type of skill, like being someone who realizes, okay, I'm a millennial and things are changing constantly. And so I want to stay current the best that I can, even though that I am getting older, right? So like, how do I balance all that? I want to be able, and that relates back to the effective communication even, right? I want to find out what are the ways that you are all communicating with each other and learn how to use those. And then also at the same time, I work with baby boomers who who also communicate differently and use different modes of technology to communicate. So I want to get familiar with some of those ways that they communicate and not just cast them aside because they're older, right? And so I would say that they all relate together to communication for sure. Biggest skill I use every day.
I love that. And we know that there are currently 5 generations in the workforce right now, Teresa. So I think that that's a really awesome piece that you brought into the conversation here today. Brian, how about you? Any specific skills you want to point out?
I mean, it's hard to add on to communications. I mean, I mean, I guess not really sure. I feel like there's just a lot of what I tap into in myself is just kind of a lot of like lived experience and just kind of being focusing on kind of like the values of who I want to be and how I want to show up in places, which are different than like maybe it's a soft skill. Yeah, and like and I think I'm social, and so I kind of lean into that to like run, manage people is to like be fun and to joke around. So I think having a sense of humor is a good skill to have. I think being flexible are good skills to have, especially in this kind of work, just being able to we work in really serious, tough situations, and so being able to carry that lightly sometimes is an important skill to kind of develop. There's different ways people can go about doing that. I think learning like basic counseling kind of skills is a good thing to always have, or like motivational interviewing skills are good ways to kind of be in these kind of professions and ways to talk with people who you're trying to help in ways that empower them. And so I think maybe those are a little bit more kind of skills you can develop and trainings you can do to kind of help them. But that's like on top of my mind, but right now.
I love that. And I love what you just said, like staying true to like your own values, who you are, who you want to be, and developing your own skills from there. Thank you. How about you, Katie?
What comes to mind here, like thinking back to when I was a liberal arts student, I think something that was very much so honed in me within like my curriculum in school was, leaning into everything and really being a generalist. So being good at communication, being good at research, being able to hold my own with like some data things, being creative, being able to public speak while also, facilitate like a one-on-one type of conversation or exchange. So being able to feel comfortable in all those different arenas and, pockets, I think is something really special that liberal arts students can bring to the table when they're entry level in their career, as well as they continue to evolve. And I think, if you give yourself the chance to say, you know what, I can do this because I had this experience at Penn State as a liberal arts student, it will open the door for you as you, work a job. It leads to another job, another project. And I think, you would be surprised how that type of mentality and attitude can help you outperform some colleagues, or even, land yourself a promotion or a networking opportunity that can, help you as you continue to grow. So I really pride myself on, being a generalist, and I think that goes hand in hand with a liberal arts education.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie. That's huge for
Laura,
sure.
I was thinking of something else if it's okay to
Yeah.
jump in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, please. Yes.
But I was just thinking like, yeah, there's like so many skills that when Katie was talking, I was just like, oh yeah, like things that kind of take you to the next level. I think like when she said research, I was thinking data. If you can get some data analysis skills, that's really big and can set you apart and make your life easier when you are a generalist and having to do a bunch of different things in the workplace. Also just keeping on top of all the technology that's coming out, like AI is going to change our field drastically. And if we're not on top of it, we'll be left behind. I know that's a cliche, but um, and so like to pay attention to that stuff, like more and more softwares are being used to like run our businesses and to help people, and AI is being used to work with other people and connect them to resources and services and stuff. And that's going to be really important to like pay attention to.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Just like maintaining up-to-date knowledge of the field that you're in and how those things are going to impact that. Good. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian, for adding that. Um, Another really great question came in, and I think that this is super relevant for the helping professions. So one of my concerns with a helping career as a criminology student, but this could be honestly any student interested in helping career, is dealing with the heartbreak or bringing that heartbreak home. So kind of that emotional heaviness that sometimes comes with the work that you all do. Do you experience this? How do you make sure that those feelings don't consume you? So Brian, would you mind starting?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I think that's what everyone who's working in the helping profession kind of should be thinking or asking themselves if they aren't already, and it's tough, and like some ways you can't get around that kind of stuff. Like you bring stuff home, it feels bad. I mean, I think one of the greatest, I don't know, greatest, but a big thing that I've learned is just like, we're in a helping profession, but I'm so helpless to really, in so many situations, and it's kind of coming to grips with that, like to just be able to show up and do my part. And so there is kind of like some kind of way, a philosophy, a spirituality, a way of how you kind of think about this stuff can help. I mean, I think there's general ideas of lots of self-care that can ideas that people can do to kind of put into place habits to create. So when these things happen, there's some guardrails to keep you in, and I think it's having a really strong network of people you care about, colleagues, so when I have something that's really hard, like I can go and talk to them, like it's important to keep myself. So like I'll see a therapist, I'll have supervisors, who I'll come to with issues, so don't feel like I'm doing it alone. It's like whenever I feel like I'm alone and this is when I start to spiral out. And so just making sure that like I have those connections in place, and also just also having other daily habits. I think some of the stuff they talk about is like sleeping well, eating well, kind of having exercise, kind of having these things already kind of like into your general routine as best as you can to kind of help things from getting to a point where you just kind of crash over the cliff. And that's also constantly checking, I think also advocating for yourself in the workplace and their community, kind of, all of that stuff kind of goes into like ensuring that not just you, but the systems and the organizations you're a part of are also kind of supporting you in the ways that you need to be supported.
I love that. Thank you so much, Brian. Katie, do you have any suggestions?
Brian touched on everything I was going to say, but just, kind of putting my own spin on it is just remembering your career and your professional persona are very, very important. I think that's something that people in the helping profession generally feel, like a sense of identity in that. But also remember your identity outside of work is equally important. So water those flowers as well. Lean into your hobbies, and just as you're committed to your job, make sure you're committed to maintaining what makes yourself who you are outside of work. So running, hiking, spending time with friends, I would be mindful and intentional about carving out spaces and times for those things as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Teresa?
I'm not sure I can add much to those great tips that they provided. I definitely concur with what they've offered. Thank you.
That kind of goes into my next question of what are some of the most hardest and discouraging parts of your work that you all see day to day? And then don't worry, we'll flip it around to the positives, but let's start with maybe some of the hardest or discouraging parts. Teresa, would you mind getting started with this one?
Yeah, I would say discouraging for me is when someone gives up. So we have folks maybe who signed up to serve and they don't utilize the services and relationships that Brian and Katie were talking about to stay healthy um, and to stay in the headspace and the body space to be able to continue this work. And so, yes, there are extenuating circumstances which makes a person not be able to finish their service. But many times when people don't finish, it's because they haven't used the resources that are available. And that is discouraging for me because it means I didn't help get them there, right? That's part of what's going on there. And so that can feel a little discouraging day to day. And because we want for people to experience success, right? And we want for people to grow and learn through this experience. That can be discouraging for me at times. Also, I think it's a little bit discouraging when folks are super emotional, have a really emotional response, and kind of shut off the people around who are trying to help with that. So feelings are valid, but they don't control us. And so it's discouraging for me when people allow their feelings to control them and that I'm not able to help get them to a place where they can utilize those resources.
So thank you. Katie, how about you?
So I was thinking back to when I worked as a student success coach. So that position that I actively recruit for now, which I held for 2 years. So I was working in an under-resourced school in North Philadelphia with a classroom of 8th graders, doing tutoring and academic interventions. And, what I found really hard or what made my days very hard when they would, come up, was just I could put in all the effort that I needed to come prepared to those sessions, but, I wasn't seeing the growth or progress that I was hoping to see based off of the fact that I did X, Y, and Z, and this should yield this type of result. And, it could kind of feel like, a merry-go-round going round and round. And I wasn't really seeing the fruits of my labor. But I think that's kind of part of the journey. So it's really easy to get caught up in those, one-offs. But if you look back at like the full academic year, it was really rewarding to me to see like, what, even though I had plenty of those days and I felt like things weren't clicking and things weren't progressing, taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture was really helpful. But just kind of, being prepared that things don't always go as quickly as you hope in terms of being able to add a service or solution in a, difficult situation. And, it can kind of make you question yourself, am I doing the job correctly? But just being able to be, calm within yourself and logically look at, I did this to the best of my ability. I leaned on the training and expertise from my team and, this is just how it goes sometimes. So I think those were things that I oftentimes grappled with in that student success coach position. So hopefully that gives you, some kind of mental picture to think about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, like you hit the nail on the head for me. And like even like things that I find discouraging in my work, it's like, oh my gosh, questioning, am I doing this correctly? Like, what could I be doing better? Could I be doing something better? Am I good enough? Those different types of questions. And I think what you said, Katie, is just like leaning on that support system. Like I think that mentorship in that capacity, and like leaning on your team can be so important during those times. So thank you. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, yeah, similar to what everyone's been saying, and yeah, and you, Lauren and Katie talking about just questioning, yeah, I think like for me that discouraging is if I feel like I'm ineffectual, and just like how I come to grips with that and how that kind of shows up in different spaces and times and being aware of that. Um, and like being in the helping type of profession that I'm in, it's tough, like you're working with people, like they're all over the place. People come at you at all different ways, and it's can be challenging. And it's like what I see like in the workplace, are people get really discouraged or trying to connect people to resources that don't exist, right? And so that's really hard when people come and they need help and there's nowhere to send them or nothing you can do except just kind of lend an ear for a little bit and then like let them go on their way, and that's really, that's really tough for people to deal with when they can't help them in the ways that the person wants. Also, like I'm a crisis line, so people just disappear. So it's like they hang up on you, and it's like people in really bad spots and then they just you don't know what happened. It's hard to those are hard things to deal with when you don't feel like you've connected or gotten through. And sometimes people come at you and they're abusive and mean and you take it personal and you think that you're doing something wrong, kind of going back to the whole kind of thing that we've been talking about. And it feels like you're ineffective, and it's just like, oh no, that person was just screaming at you. What are you gonna do? And they hang up, right? But it's like it's hard not to take that stuff personal, and those things are discouraging, and it's just, yeah.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Just before I get into the encouraging part, I just want to note that Katie, Teresa, and Brian, all the work that you do is amazing, and you are all amazing people. Just like my little cheerleader on the side coming through here. So, um, but yeah, so I'm gonna flip it to the other side. Is what are some of the most encouraging parts of your work? What do you love? How do you stay inspired? Brian, since you're still off mute, we'll start with you. Yeah.
I'm an off mute guy sometimes.
I love it. I love it.
Just, yeah, I mean, like, of course, like, I guess for me, like, I mean, everyone has their own kind of different things. I think people feel really good when they're able to help people, right, in the ways that they want. And there's like this kind of successful ending to the kind of journey that they're on with these people, and I feel the same way. And but I think even more at like a deeper sense, like I feel just so full of like gratitude to be able to like sit and be with people like in these intense moments, and to share existence with them and to kind of work with them and be with them and support them in whatever's going through. Like that's, I don't know, there's just something really powerful and connecting and meaningful and being able to do that with another person. And so that's like where it's at for me.
Amazing. Thank you. How about you, Katie?
I think something that comes to mind with this question, that I felt in my own personal experience is being in the helping profession. My colleagues have oftentimes become like a strong sense of community for me. And I think it's nice because there's this shared value that folks in this profession automatically have right off the bat. And that's not to say, regardless of what industry you find yourself in, you won't make connections with your coworkers and perhaps find coworkers that become friends. But just thinking back to what I've experienced, I've made lifelong friendships with people that I've met through City Year, which, I'm so happy that I have that duality of work, but then also being able to, call my colleagues friends. So I think that's pretty special and it brings a lot of contentment to my life. Just having that sense of community and kind of camaraderie, if you will.
Absolutely. How about you, Teresa?
I think for me, I get to experience some amount of full circle moments with people. So that's maybe folks who served a term of national service or folks who and I'm talking with like alumni, right? Or I'm talking with community members who've benefited from the services that folks provide through this service year. And those conversations, I can get emotional just even like thinking about those conversations, like how much growth people have during their service, and then how much families, children, elderly, veterans, like how much people who are really struggling benefited from the person who was serving them. So like as difficult as it is, like those conversations that I am so fortunate to get to have, like they are the things, right? Like they're what keeps me showing up to work every day, right? Like it's my own personal love of the work, but also I'm like, man, like this is like a profession where it's like there's not a lot of money, but there's so much gratification in other ways, like so much goodness in other ways. So
That's amazing. I love that. We had a question come in the chat, and then after this question, I have one more, and we'll wrap it up. So, Jesse, thank you so much for the question. What are the most effective self-care and distressing tools that you personally utilize to maintain your own mental health to ensure that you can provide the best care for others? So, Teresa, can I start with you and we'll go back around?
Yeah, that's one reason I put that walking thing in my bio.
Yeah.
I take a walk every afternoon that I'm able to, and it is a major part of helping me to stay mentally healthy. I love and I try to do it outside even when it's very cold, because it's just like, yeah, I don't know what it is, just being out in nature and just going on a walk just does a lot of things for me. So that's definitely my biggest go-to.
Amazing. How about you, Katie?
Mine's definitely being active, but I would add to, this is probably some like tough love that I'm trying to preach to myself right now. I would also say stay organized. I think that's a great way to set yourself up for success. When I feel myself getting frazzled or overwhelmed with work, oftentimes it's like an indicator to me that I need to clean up, start with a fresh slate, and then, I feel a lot more refreshed moving forward. So I would, just put it out there, try and build an organizational system and, stick to it the best you can.
Awesome. Both great pieces of advice. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think for me it's God, I think like having laughing and kind of making jokes and having fun, kind of hanging out a little bit. I think bringing that kind of goofy personality or times really make things better. And I really enjoy just hanging out with friends and going to get coffee and stuff, and that really kind of lifts me
I
up.
love that. I love that. I'll add mine just because I think it can help normalize things too, is I see a therapist once a week, and I think that that is one of the biggest things that I can do for myself. I love to say that people in the helping professions are honestly therapists. They need their own therapist. So I just love adding that one in too. So okay, so just to wrap this panel up, if you all could just offer one piece of advice for those in the audience who are looking to get into the helping professions, whether it's with your organizations or others, what would that piece of advice be? So why don't we start with Teresa?
I think that the best thing that a person can do in this profession is to really do a self-reflection and figure out who you are and what you value, what matters to you the most, because and then you can go back to that, because that, like, I know it's so cliche to say about remembering your why. I just need that. I need to remember my why some days when it's down in the weeds, and I can't remember that if I never knew what it was to start with. So taking some time to determine what I value the most and writing it down, I think is the best thing you could do.
How about you, Brian?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I guess I have like just some practical thinking about like finance tips. I think that financial literacy is really important. I think always when you're getting hired, that's your time when you're the most valuable and you have the most negotiating power. Start investing in a IRA right away, and get going. But other than that, I mean, like I think Teresa like had a good idea of just kind of how to figure out where you want to go for yourself. There's tons of those kind of career assessment things too to look into, but I don't know if I have any kind of specific advice other than that.
I love all of that. I think the practical piece of the finances mixed with like that why piece that Teresa added is excellent, just to underscore that. So thank you. And again, last but not least, Katie.
I was trying to think of, like a practical, tangible piece of advice I could share with the crew here. And what came to mind specifically, given that the audience are students currently in, a campus environment with a lot of people around you, I would say really remember your network and the connections around you. So, something that you can be doing to set yourself up for success down the line is, remembering you had a really personal, positive interaction with a professor. Stay in touch with that professor, and they could lead to be a reference or a letter of recommendation when you are this close to landing the job that you want. Or, just staying connected to those people around you. I think that's a great way to have a robust set of opportunities at your fingertips. It might not always seem like it, but then you'll be ready to tap into those connections when you need them the most. I know that's something that I think I missed the mark on a little bit when I was early in my career, looking to get my foot in the door, or asking for people to be that recommender when I was sending an application. So I would say, just try and really nurture those connections right now while they're all around you and you're currently living and breathing them, if that's helpful.
I love that. Thank you so much, Katie. There's seriously some power of the Penn State network with faculty, staff, like employers like you all. And so I want to remind you all in the audience as we close out our panel today, like, these three amazing individuals are now a part of your network. You have listened to them for the last 45 minutes, 50 minutes. I will be sending out their contact information. I really encourage you all to reach out to them, especially if you're interested in any of the opportunities that their organizations have to offer. But honestly, even if you just need advice, they're all lovely people. I've met with them individually, and I enjoy talking to each of them. So with that, I will conclude our Love Liberal Arts Week panel on loving others, careers in the helping professions. Thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate all of your expertise and the amazing work that you do. So thank you for spending your time with me, and I'm sure I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
have a good
everyone.
rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend, and happy Valentine's Day.